Her deaf daughter could walk, but her fiancé prevents her. The gardener confessed to the millionaire. Victoria Henderson trembled as she held the phone, listening to words she never expected to hear from Mr. Walter, the gardener who had tended to her property for over 15 years. The successful businesswoman, owner of one of the largest construction companies in the Georgia countryside, felt her world collapsing around her as the simple man, with a worn cap and calloused hands, revealed what he had witnessed in recent months. It was during breakfast in the mansion's garden that Mr. Walter could no longer keep the secret tormenting him. Victoria was sitting at the wrought-iron table, reviewing contracts, when she saw the gardener approach with hesitant steps. Little Emily, just 6 years old, played quietly in her wheelchair near the rose bushes, wearing the yellow dress she loved so much. The morning sun filtered through the leaves of the century-old trees, creating an atmosphere that contrasted brutally with the tension about to explode. "Mrs. Henderson, I need to speak with you about the girl," said Mr. Walter, removing his cap and revealing his greying hair. His voice trembled with nervousness. Victoria looked up from the papers, noticing the grave expression on the face of the man who had always been discreet and respectful. "What happened, Mr. Walter? Is Emily okay?" The gardener looked around, checking if Nathan, Victoria's fiancé, was not nearby. The businessman had left early for a business meeting, leaving the house in a silence that facilitated difficult conversations. "It's about her not being able to walk, ma'am. I saw things I shouldn't have seen." Victoria felt a tightness in her chest. Emily had lost her hearing at age 2 due to meningitis, and for 3 years had been confined to a wheelchair after an accident during a birthday party. The girl had fallen from a small ladder while playing, resulting in a spinal injury that doctors said had permanently affected her ability to walk. "What are you talking about?" Mr. Walter took a deep breath, looking at Emily, who was drawing quietly in her notebook, unaware of the conversation that would change their lives forever. "Mrs. Henderson, your daughter can walk. I saw her trying to get up when she's alone. But whenever Mr. Nathan is around, she acts different, more quiet." The words hit Victoria like a punch to the stomach. She looked at her daughter, trying to process the impossible information she had just heard. "That's ridiculous, Walter. The doctors were very clear about Emily's condition. She has a spinal cord injury." "I know what I saw, ma'am. 3 times last week, when I was pruning the plants near the porch, I saw the girl lean on the arms of the chair and push with her legs. She almost managed to stand." Victoria stood up abruptly, making the chair scrape against the stone floor. The idea was absurd, unthinkable. Nathan had been with them for 2 years, since they met at a business conference in Atlanta. He had been a crucial support during the most difficult times of Emily's adaptation to the wheelchair. "Walter, you must be mistaken. Emily does physical therapy exercises. It's normal for her to move her legs during exercises." "They weren't exercises, Mrs. Henderson. It was her trying to get up. And when Mr. Nathan arrived in the garden, she stopped immediately and pretended to be asleep." The gardener pointed to the area near the flower bed where Emily usually spent her afternoons. Victoria followed the gesture, trying to imagine the scene he described. "There's one more thing, ma'am. Yesterday I was putting away the tools in the shed when I heard Mr. Nathan talking on the phone. He was telling someone that it was important to keep the girl stable and that any improvement could complicate the plans." Victoria felt her legs tremble. The suggestion was monstrous. Nathan loved Emily as if she were his own daughter. He had always shown genuine affection for the girl, learned sign language to communicate with her, and insisted on attending every medical appointment. "You must have misunderstood. Nathan cares for Emily like a father." "I know it seems impossible, ma'am, but I also noticed that Emily's physical therapy medications were switched a few months ago. I know because I helped Mrs. Margaret organize the household medicine cabinet. The old boxes had a different label." Margaret was the housekeeper who had taken care of the home for over 10 years, a trusted woman Victoria considered part of the family. The mention of the medications made Victoria's heart race dangerously. "What kind of switch?" "The old boxes had the name of a complicated medicine I can't pronounce. The new ones are just common vitamins. Mr. Nathan said the doctor changed the prescription, but what? But I never saw any new prescription, and Emily seemed to be improving before the switch. She smiled more, tried to move more in her chair. Victoria walked over to where Emily was seated, watching her daughter drawing with concentration. The girl looked up and smiled, making hand signs asking if everything was okay. Victoria replied yes, but her heart was shattered. "Walter, these are very serious accusations. Are you sure of what you're saying?" "I didn't want to say anything, ma'am. I'm afraid of losing my job, and at my age of 62 it's not easy to find work. But I can't watch this girl suffering when perhaps she doesn't need to." The sound of a car arriving interrupted the conversation. Nathan was back earlier than expected. Mr. Walter quickly put his cap back on and picked up the gardening tools, returning to work as if nothing had happened. Nathan got out of the car with a smile on his face, carrying flowers for Victoria and a small gift for Emily. He had become part of the family with an ease that now began to seem calculated in Victoria's troubled eyes. "How are my two princesses?" asked Nathan, kissing Victoria on the cheek and then bending down to greet Emily in sign language. Victoria watched the interaction with new eyes. Was there something in the way Nathan held Emily's arms, preventing any independent movement, or was she being paranoid after the conversation with Mr. Walter? "Nathan, we need to talk about Emily's medications. Walter mentioned there was a recent change." Nathan seemed tense for a moment, but quickly regained his composure. "Ah, yes. Dr. Richardson thought it best to simplify the treatment. Too many medications can overwhelm her system. The vitamins are safer and will help with overall strengthening. But I don't remember us discussing this change. You were very busy with the shopping center project. I didn't want to bother you with medical details I can handle." Victoria noticed that Nathan avoided looking directly at her while speaking. Was it the first time she had noticed this trait in him, or had she been blind because she was in love? During lunch, Victoria closely observed the interactions between Nathan and Emily. He cut the girl's food, adjusted her position in the chair, and constantly checked if she was comfortable. To any outside observer, it seemed like the loving care of a future stepfather. But Mr. Walter's words echoed in Victoria's mind, making her question every gesture. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. After lunch, Nathan suggested that Emily rest in the bedroom while he and Victoria discussed the wedding preparations, scheduled for 2 months later. Victoria carried her daughter to the bedroom, noticing for the first time how Emily seemed heavier than normal, as if she was resisting the movement. "Are you okay, my love?" asked Victoria in sign language, sitting Emily on the bed. The girl hesitated before answering, looking at the door as if checking if anyone was listening. In quick signs, she said, "Mummy, I dream that I walk. Do you think I'll ever be able to for real?" Victoria's heart broke. Emily had never expressed this desire before, at least not so clearly. She had always seemed to accept her condition, with a resignation that now seemed strange for a 6-year-old. "Would you like to try to walk, Emily?" The girl looked at the door again and then made discreet signs. "Sometimes I have feelings in my legs. But Uncle Nathan said it's dangerous to try because I could hurt myself more." Victoria felt a chill down her spine. When had Nathan had this conversation with Emily, and why wasn't she, as the mother, present? "When did Uncle Nathan say this?" "A few times when you're not here. He said it's a secret between us so you don't get worried." The revelation was like a bomb exploding in Victoria's chest. Nathan was having private conversations with Emily about her medical condition, conversations that deliberately excluded the mother. This violated all the protocols they had established about the girl's care. Victoria let Emily rest and returned to the garden, where she found Nathan checking something on his phone. He quickly put the device away when he saw her approaching. "Nathan, we need to schedule an appointment with Dr. Richardson. I want a second opinion on Emily's condition." "But we just changed the treatment. Wouldn't it be better to wait a few weeks to see the results?" "No, I want to schedule it for this week. Emily told me she sometimes feels her legs. That could be a good sign." Nathan looked visibly uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Victoria, we shouldn't create false hope. Emily is a child, and sometimes they imagine sensations that aren't there. Dr. Richardson was very clear about the permanence of the injury." "Then an appointment will just confirm that, won't it?" I see no problem in checking. Of course, you're right, I'll call to schedule it, but something in Nathan's voice didn't sound convincing. Victoria decided she would make the call herself. That afternoon, while Nathan went out for another meeting, Victoria looked for Margaret in the kitchen. The housekeeper was preparing dinner, humming an old song softly. "Margaret, can I ask you something about Emily's medications?" The 50-year-old woman stopped chopping the vegetables and looked at Victoria with concern. "Of course, Ma'am. Did something happen? Walter mentioned there was a change in the medicines. Have you noticed any difference?" Margaret dried her hands on her apron and looked around to make sure they were alone. "To be honest, Ma'am, I thought it was strange. Emily was more lively in the weeks before the change. She even tried to help me make cookies one afternoon, trying to reach the kitchen table." "Trying to reach how?" "She was leaning on the arms of the chair and stretching her body. It seemed like she wanted to stand up. But when I told Mr. Nathan, he said it was better to discourage her so she wouldn't get her hopes up." Victoria felt bile rise in her throat. More evidence that Nathan was controlling information about Emily that should have been shared with her. And about the medications themselves. The old ones came in a blue box with a name I could never pronounce right. The new ones are just vitamin C, very different. "Margaret, did you keep the old boxes?" "Mr. Nathan asked me to throw them away, but I always keep medicine boxes in the pantry for a few weeks in case I need to check something. Let me see if I still have it." Carmen went to the pantry and returned with a crumpled box. The medication name was Neuroplex, a specific vitamin complex for neural regeneration. Victoria quickly searched on her phone and discovered it was a supplement used for patients with spinal cord injuries to stimulate the recovery of nerve connections. The phone rang, interrupting her findings. It was Dr. Richardson. "Dr. Victoria, I'm glad you called. I actually wanted to talk about Emily. I received some tests I ordered a few months ago, and the results are quite encouraging." "What tests?" "I didn't know about any recent tests." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Mr. Nathan didn't mention it. We did an MRI of Emily's spine 6 weeks ago. The results show there is much less damage than we initially thought." Victoria almost dropped the phone. Nathan had taken Emily for tests without her knowledge and hidden the results. "Dr. Richardson, I need to schedule an urgent appointment, and I want a copy of all of Emily's tests and reports from the last 2 years." "Of course. Can I see you tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon? And Dr. Victoria, based on the new tests, I believe Emily could benefit greatly from intensive physical therapy. The injury is not as severe as we feared." After hanging up, Victoria sat in the kitchen trying to process all the information. Nathan had hidden positive medical tests, switched medications without her consent, and discouraged Emily's attempts to move independently. Carmen approached with a cup of tea. "Ma'am, can I say something? I know it's none of my business, but—" "You can speak, Carmen. I've noticed that Mr. Nathan always finds an excuse to be alone with Emily when you're not here, and she acts different after those talks. Quieter." "Different how?" "Before, she always tried to help with small tasks. She wanted to reach for things, to participate. After Mr. Nathan talks with her, she stops trying and just sits there. The puzzle pieces were beginning to form a terrifying picture. Nathan was systematically undermining Emily's confidence in her own physical abilities, keeping her dependent and discouraging any progress. When Nathan returned home that night, Victoria was waiting in the living room with Emily's old test results spread on the coffee table. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. Nathan looked at the papers, and his expression changed subtly. "What is all this?" "These are Emily's medical records, including tests you had done without my knowledge." "Victoria, I can explain." "Then explain. Explain why you hid that Emily's injury is less severe than we thought. Explain why you switched her medications without consulting me. Explain why you're discouraging our daughter from trying to move." Nathan sat down heavily on the sofa, running his hands through his hair. "I was trying to protect you both. Doctors sometimes give false hope. I preferred to wait to be sure before creating expectations that could be dashed." "Protect from what?" "From the possibility of our daughter getting better." "Victoria, you don't understand the pressure it would put on Emily if she knew she could walk but couldn't manage it. It's better for her to accept her current condition than to suffer from failed attempts. The explanation sounded hollow and calculated. Victoria noticed that Nathan continued to avoid looking her directly in the eye. "Nathan, Emily told me you talked to her about not trying to walk. Why would you do that?" I just don't want her to get hurt. Falls could make her condition worse." "But the doctors never said that." "In fact, everyone always encouraged movement within her possibilities." Nathan stood up abruptly. "Victoria, you're being paranoid. Maybe it's wedding stress. Why don't we talk about this after you've calmed down?" "I won't calm down. I want answers. And I want you to stop interfering with Emily's treatment without my knowledge." "Is she only your daughter? I thought we were building a family together." The question had a possessive tone that made Victoria physically recoil. "Of course we are, but I am her mother. Important medical decisions need to go through me." "Fine. But don't blame me if Emily gets frustrated when she finds out she can't do everything she imagines she can do." The conversation ended without resolution, but something had changed irreversibly in Victoria's perception of Nathan. For the first time, she questioned the motivations of the man she planned to spend the rest of her life with. The next morning, Victoria took Emily alone to the appointment with Dr. Richardson. Nathan claimed to have an important meeting he couldn't cancel, but offered to reschedule the appointment for a day when he could accompany them. "That's not necessary," said Victoria firmly. "I can handle this alone." In the office, Dr. Richardson showed the test results in detail. The images revealed that the injury to Emily's spine was much less severe than the initial tests had indicated. With proper physical therapy and correct stimulation, there was a real chance of significant recovery. "Why wasn't this information shared with me before?" asked Victoria. "I assumed Mr. Nathan had passed it on. He was here alone last week to pick up the results and said he would discuss the next steps with you." Another lie by omission. Nathan had not only hidden the positive results, but had actively discouraged hopes of improvement. "Dr. Richardson, if we start intensive physical therapy now, what is the realistic outlook for Emily? At 6 years old, her body still has incredible plasticity. I believe she could regain at least some mobility. Maybe not walk perfectly, but she could take a few steps with support. For a child, that would mean enormous independence." Emily was sitting on the exam table, swinging her legs freely as the doctor spoke. Victoria noticed she could move them much more than she demonstrated at home. "Emily, can you feel your legs when you do that?" asked the doctor in signs. The girl looked at her mother before answering, "Yes, I can feel them, but Uncle Nathan said it's dangerous to try to stand." Dr. Richardson looked confused at Victoria. "There is no contraindication for attempting to stand with support. In fact, that's exactly what she should be doing." The appointment ended with a new treatment plan that included physical therapy 3 times a week and exercises at home. Victoria left the office with a mixture of hope and anger that consumed her inside. On the way back, she decided to make a detour to the physical therapy clinic where Emily had her weekly sessions. She wanted to talk to the therapists about her daughter's progress. The head physical therapist, Dr. Jennifer, received Victoria with a smile that quickly turned to concern when she learned the reason for the visit. "Victoria, I need to be honest with you. In recent weeks, the instructions we've received about Emily have changed drastically." "What kind of instructions?" "Before we worked on strengthening and stimulation exercises. Recently, Mr. Nathan instructed us to focus only on maintaining muscle tone without pushing for progress." "Did he say why?" "He claimed you were very stressed and that any improvement in Emily could create unnecessary pressure on the family. He asked us not to comment on the small progress she was showing." Victoria felt as if she were uncovering a conspiracy against her own daughter. "What kind of progress?" Emily was able to support her own weight for a few seconds when assisted. She also showed reflexes in her legs that indicated neural reconnection. But following the instructions, we reduced the intensity of the exercises. "From today on, ignore any instruction that doesn't come directly from me. I want you to return to the original protocol and keep me informed about every small improvement." Dr. Jennifer seemed relieved. "Actually, I have a video from last week I'd like to show you. I filmed it because I thought you'd want to see, but Mr. Nathan asked me not to share it yet." The video showed Emily supported by parallel bars, managing to hold her own weight for almost 15 seconds. Her legs trembled with the effort, but she was clearly standing. The smile on the girl's face was radiant. Victoria began to cry. Her daughter was progressing, but that progress was being hidden from her and deliberately discouraged. Dr. Jennifer, starting tomorrow I want daily sessions, and I want to be present for all of them. That night, Victoria confronted Nathan with the evidence she had gathered during the day. She placed the physical therapy video on the table between them. Explain this. Nathan watched the video in silence, his expression hardening progressively. Victoria, this type of exercise can be dangerous. If she falls, she learns. That's how normal children learn to walk. Why should our daughter be different? Because she's not a normal child. She has limitations that need to be respected. Nathan's aggressive tone was a revelation. He had never spoken about Emily that way, always maintaining a posture of acceptance and love. The mask was finally slipping. Nathan, why don't you want Emily to get better? This should be the best possible news for our family. I didn't say I don't want her to get better. I just think we need to be realistic about expectations. Realistic or pessimistic? There's a difference. Nathan stood up and began pacing the room, clearly agitated. Victoria, you don't understand the complexity of the situation. If Emily starts to walk, our family dynamic will change completely. She'll need less care, less attention, and why would that be bad? Nathan stopped pacing and looked directly at Victoria for the first time in the conversation. Because maybe you won't need me anymore. The confession hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Victoria finally understood the motivation behind all of Nathan's behavior. He wasn't protecting Emily, he was protecting his own role in the family. Nathan, are you sabotaging our daughter's recovery because you're afraid I won't need you anymore? It's not sabotage, it's preservation. Our family works well as it is. Why risk unnecessary changes? Because Emily deserves the chance to live the best life possible. She deserves to try to walk, to try to be independent. And what if she can't? What if all these attempts just frustrate her? Have you thought about that? I'd rather have an Emily who's frustrated but trying than an Emily resigned to a condition she might not even have to accept. The argument escalated quickly. Nathan revealed he had researched extensively about spinal cord injuries and concluded the chances of full recovery were minimal. In his distorted logic, he was sparing the family from inevitable disappointment. But it's not your decision to make alone, shouted Victoria. Emily is my daughter. And I'm going to be her stepfather. That gives me rights too. Not when you're actively harming her well-being. Nathan left the house that night, claiming he needed time to think. Victoria felt relieved by his absence, but also unsettled by the intensity of the confrontation. The next morning, Margaret commented during breakfast, "Ma'am, Emily woke up earlier today and was trying to reach something in the bedroom closet. She seemed more lively." Victoria went upstairs to check and found Emily sitting on the bed, looking out the window. When she saw her mother, she made quick signs. "Mommy, can I try to stand today? I feel like my legs want to try." Victoria's heart filled with determination. "Of course you can, my love. Let's try together." They went down to the living room, where Victoria positioned Emily in front of the sofa, giving full support as the girl tried to hold her own weight. Emily trembled with the effort but managed to stand for a few seconds before sitting back down. "I did it," she signed, her eyes shining with joy. It was at that moment that Nathan entered the room, returning from his night out. His expression changed drastically when he saw the scene. "What are you doing?" he asked abruptly. "Emily is trying to stand. She did it," said Victoria, not hiding her pride. "Victoria, stop this immediately. You're going to hurt her." "I won't stop. And you will no longer interfere with her treatment." Nathan approached, trying to move Victoria away from Emily. "You're being irresponsible. If anything happens to her, it will be your fault." "Get out of my house," said Victoria coldly. "What?" "You heard me. I want you out of my house now. The wedding is off." Nathan seemed shocked by the firmness of the statement. "Victoria, you can't be serious. Over a disagreement about physical therapy?" "It's not about physical therapy. It's about you lying to me, hiding medical information about my daughter, and deliberately sabotaging her recovery to suit your own insecurities." Emily watched the argument with wide eyes, clearly feeling the tension in the air. Victoria knelt beside the wheelchair and made comforting signs. "It's okay, my love. Mommy is taking care of everything." "Victoria, if you send me away now, you'll regret it. Emily will need care for the rest of her life." "You can't do this alone," said Nathan in a tone that mixed pleading and threat. "I can and I will. And Emily will not need care for the rest of her life. She will learn to walk again. You're living in a fantasy world. The doctors never guaranteed a full recovery. But they guaranteed the possibility of significant improvement, and that's enough for us to try." Nathan gathered his things and left, but not before making one last attempt at manipulation. "When Emily can't walk and you realize you were wrong, I won't be here to help clean up the emotional mess it will cause." After he left, the house felt lighter. Margaret commented that even the air seemed different, less tense. In the following weeks, Victoria dedicated herself entirely to Emily's recovery. The physical therapy sessions intensified, and Emily showed consistent progress. She could stand with support for increasingly longer periods, and demonstrated growing strength in her legs. Mr. Walter, the gardener, became an unexpected ally on this journey. He built a small ramp in the garden and support bars among the plants, so Emily could practice balance movements. His skilled hands created an outdoor recovery environment that perfectly complemented the work at the clinic. "Mrs. Henderson, the girl is different," commented Mr. Walter one afternoon as they watched Emily practicing her balance on the makeshift ramp. "She smiles more, she tries more things." "It's amazing how the emotional environment affects physical recovery," replied Victoria. "I think she was feeling the tension that existed in the house. Children feel everything, even when they don't talk about it. Emily was carrying a weight that wasn't hers." Dr. Richardson was impressed with the progress when they returned to the office a month later. Emily could take 3 steps with minimal support, something he didn't expect to see for at least 6 months. "Victoria, what you're doing is working perfectly. Emily is surpassing all medical expectations. We're giving her permission to try," replied Victoria simply. The doctor smiled. "Sometimes that's exactly what patients need. Permission to expect the best of themselves. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 3 months after Nathan left, Emily took her first completely independent steps. It happened during a sunny afternoon in the garden, while she was playing near the flower bed that Mr. Walter had specially rearranged for her. Margaret was hanging clothes on the line when she shouted, "Mrs. Henderson, come quick! Emily is walking!" Victoria ran from the office and reached the garden in time to see Emily take 5 wobbly but determined steps toward a butterfly that had landed on the roses. The girl was completely focused on her goal, unaware of the miracle she was performing. When she finally realized she was walking, Emily looked down at her own legs with an expression of pure surprise and joy. She turned to Victoria and made frantic signs. "Mommy, I'm walking! Look!" Victoria ran to hug her daughter, both crying with emotion. Mr. Walter watched from the porch with tears in his eyes, and Margaret couldn't stop saying, "Thank God," between emotional sobs. "How do you feel, my love?" asked Victoria in signs. "Like I'm free," replied Emily, her small hands forming the words with precision. "Like I could go anywhere." That night, as Emily slept exhausted but happy after a day of walking attempts, Victoria reflected on everything they had been through. Nathan's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been a liberation. Emily was finally free to explore her full potential without the artificial limitations that had been imposed on her. Margaret gently knocked on Victoria's bedroom door. "Ma'am, can I say something?" "Of course, Margaret. I never said anything before because it wasn't my place, but I always thought Emily could do more than she showed. It was as if she was hiding." "Hiding from what?" "From disappointing someone. Children do that sometimes. They pretend to be less capable to avoid causing trouble or to make adults happy." Margaret's observation was profound. Emily had internalized Nathan's low expectations and shaped her behavior accordingly. Once free from those expectations, her true potential could blossom. In the following months, Emily continued to progress. She would never be completely normal in terms of mobility, but she could walk considerable distances with support and had enough independence to play and explore like any child her age. The communication between mother and daughter also deepened. Victoria learned sign language fluently and discovered that Emily had a brilliant intelligence and a unique perspective on the world. The hearing impairment, once seen as a limitation, became just a characteristic that required adaptation, not resignation. Mr. Walter became a paternal figure in Emily's life. He taught her about plants and gardens, created games that stimulated her recovering mobility, and always encouraged her to try new things. Your infinite patience and practical wisdom were fundamental in the recovery journey. "Mr. Walter, why did you decide to talk to me that day?" asked Victoria during an afternoon in the garden, watching Emily practice balancing on a makeshift tightrope between two trees. "Because I saw a child being prevented from being everything she could be, and that's not right, no matter who's doing it. You risked your job to defend a child who isn't even your daughter. When you work in a house for 15 years, everyone becomes your family in some way. And family, we protect." Mr. Walter's simple wisdom contrasted sharply with Nathan's manipulative complexity. Victoria realized she had almost chosen the wrong man, not only as a partner, but as a paternal figure for Emily. 6 months after Emily's first steps, Victoria received an unexpected call from Nathan. He had learned through mutual acquaintances about Emily's recovery and wanted a chance to explain his actions. "Victoria, I know I made mistakes, but I want you to understand that I truly thought I was protecting you both." "Nathan, you lied about medical exams, hid physical therapy progress, and discouraged a child from trying to improve her own condition. How can that be considered protection?" "I was afraid that if Emily improved, you'd realize you didn't need me anymore, afraid of being alone again. So you chose to keep a child limited to feel needed. Do you realize how sick that is?" Nathan was silent for a long moment. "I realize it now, and I hate myself for it. Seeing Emily walking in the photos our friends shared, she looked so happy, happier than I remember ever seeing her. She is happy. She's discovering who she really is without artificial limitations. Victoria, is there any chance you could forgive me? I'm not asking for us to get back together, but I would like to be able to watch her grow up, even if from afar." "Nathan, forgiveness is something I'll work on over time, but you are no longer part of our life. Emily is flourishing without you, and I won't risk her progress by allowing you back in. I understand, and Victoria, tell Emily I'm sorry, so very sorry." After hanging up, Victoria felt a mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for the family they could have been if Nathan had been a different man, and relief for having discovered his true nature before marrying and giving him legal rights over Emily. Emily, in the meantime, was building a rich life full of possibilities. She enrolled in a specialized school for deaf children where she thrived academically. Her ability to walk, though still limited, allowed her to participate in activities that were once unthinkable. "Mummy, can I take dance lessons?" asked Emily one afternoon through enthusiastic signs. "Dance? Are you sure you can manage?" "I want to try. If I can't, at least I'll know I tried." Emily's life philosophy had completely changed. Where there was once resignation, now there was curiosity and determination. Victoria found a dance teacher specialized in working with children of different physical abilities. The first dance lessons were a challenge, but Emily adapted by creating her own style that combined expressive arm movements with simple yet graceful steps. She wouldn't be a ballerina in the traditional sense, but she developed a unique form of expression through movement. "It's amazing how she compensates for the lack of hearing with body expression," commented the dance teacher. "She feels the music through vibrations and visual observation of the other dancers." Victoria realized Emily was developing skills and talents that would never have been discovered if she had remained limited to the wheelchair. Each new challenge revealed new capabilities. Emily's social life also blossomed. At school, she made friends who communicated fluently in sign language and who did not see her hearing impairment as a limitation. Her vibrant personality and inspiring determination made her popular among her classmates. "Victoria, "Emily is organizing a dance performance for the school," said Mr. Walter one afternoon, watching Emily rehearse in the garden. "She's teaching the steps to the other kids in her class. She's become a teacher too, apparently, and the children are learning sign language from her. It's beautiful to see." Emily's ability to lead and inspire others was a quality that would never have developed if she had remained in a position of dependency. Victoria realized that Nathan had not only limited Emily's physical development, but also her social and emotional potential. 1 year after the breakup with Nathan, Victoria was much stronger and more confident as a single mother. She had learned to trust her own instincts about what was best for Emily, without depending on the opinion or approval of others. "Margaret, do you notice how our family dynamic has changed?" asked Victoria during a sunny breakfast in the garden. "Changed for the better, ma'am. The house breathes differently. There's more laughter, more attempts, more life. Sometimes I wonder how I didn't realize before how much Nathan was controlling our emotional atmosphere. When you're inside the situation, it's hard to see. You needed someone from the outside, like Mr. Walter, to show what was happening." Mr. Walter, who was pruning the nearby rose bushes, overheard the conversation and approached. "Mrs. Henderson, may I give my opinion?" "Of course, Walter. A man who is afraid of a child's happiness is no man to be a father. A real father wants to see his children fly high, even if it means they don't need him anymore." The simple but profound wisdom of Mr. Walter perfectly summarized the difference between Nathan and a true father figure. Emily now had in Mr. Walter an example of unconditional love and genuine encouragement. Emily appeared in the garden at that moment, walking with more confidence each day. She was carrying a piece of paper and went straight to Victoria. "Mommy, I wrote a letter," she said in signs, handing over the paper. The letter was written in the careful handwriting of a 7-year-old. "Dear Mommy, thank you for letting me try to walk. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Now I know I can do many things. I want to be a dancer, a teacher, and maybe an inventor too. You are the best mommy in the world. Love, Emily P.S. Mr. Walter is the best borrowed grandpa too." Victoria read the letter with tears in her eyes. Emily's gratitude was touching, but it also revealed how much she had internalized the limitations Nathan had imposed. Now she was rediscovering her own possibilities. "Emily, you don't need to thank me for believing in you. It's my job as your mother." "I know, but before I thought you believed I was broken. Now I know you believe I am strong." Emily's perception of the change in Victoria's attitude was revealing. Victoria realized she had, unconsciously, adopted some of Nathan's limiting perspectives about Emily. His departure allowed her to free herself from those limitations as well. That night, Victoria reflected on the extraordinary journey they had taken. What began as a devastating revelation from Mr. Walter turned into the discovery that Emily was capable of much more than anyone had imagined. Nathan's betrayal, though painful, had been a blessing in disguise. He had tried to keep Emily limited to satisfy his own insecurities, but inadvertently revealed the strength and determination that existed in both the girl and her mother. Margaret knocked on Victoria's bedroom door before leaving that night. "Ma'am, may I offer a suggestion?" "Of course. Emily is progressing so much that perhaps it's time to consider even more challenging activities." She mentioned an interest in learning to swim. "Swimming for a deaf child who is relearning to walk? Why not? If there's one thing I've learned observing this family, it's that we should never underestimate what Emily is capable of doing." Margaret's suggestion made Victoria smile. She was right. It was time to stop thinking about limitations and start thinking about possibilities. The next morning, Victoria researched adaptive swimming programs and found a school that worked specifically with children with different needs. The swimming teacher, Rebecca, specialized in working with deaf children and was excited when she heard Emily's story. "Swimming is fantastic for children developing strength and coordination," explained Rebecca. "And for deaf children, the water offers a unique sensory experience that can be very liberating." Emily was nervous but excited about the prospect of learning to swim. Her first lesson was a modest success. She managed to float with support and took a few basic strokes. But the most important thing was her attitude. She was clearly determined to master this new skill. "How do you feel in the water?" asked Victoria, in signs when Emily got out of the pool. "Like I could fly," replied Emily, her eyes shining with joy. In the following weeks, Emily progressed quickly in swimming. Her determination on land transferred to the water, and soon she was swimming short distances independently. Swimming became not just an exercise, but a source of confidence and joy. Mr. Walter built a small inflatable pool in the garden so Emily could practice at home. He would sit in the shade watching with paternal pride as she played and exercised in the water. "Mrs. Henderson, this girl never stops surprising," he commented one afternoon. "First it was walking, then dancing, now swimming. What could be next? With Emily, we never know. And I think that's how it should be." Positive unpredictability had replaced the controlled limitation that characterized life when Nathan was present. Emily was free to explore her interests and discover new talents without fear of discouragement. During a routine visit to Dr. Richardson, he was impressed not only with Emily's physical progress, but with her emotional transformation. "Victoria, in 20 years of medicine, I've rarely seen such a complete recovery, and I'm not just talking about physical mobility, but the psychological transformation." "What do you mean?" Emily was clearly repressing her potential before. Now she's flourishing in all areas. It's as if a completely new personality has emerged. Or perhaps her true personality was being suppressed. Exactly. It's a powerful reminder of how the emotional environment affects a child's physical and mental development. Dr. Richardson suggested that Emily participate in a study on spinal cord injury recovery in children. Her extraordinary progress could help other doctors better understand the role of psychological factors in physical rehabilitation. "Would Emily like to help other children?" asked Victoria. "I think she would love to. Part of her personality now is helping others overcome limitations." Emily was excited about the idea of participating in the study. Her new life philosophy included helping others discover their own capabilities, a leadership quality that had developed naturally as her confidence grew. 2 years after Nathan left, Victoria was unrecognizable as a person. The insecure woman who had allowed a man to control the medical decisions about her daughter had transformed into a strong and intuitive mother who trusted her own judgments. "Margaret, do you see how I've changed too?" asked Victoria during a quiet afternoon. "You were always strong, ma'am, you just didn't know it. Mr. Nathan made you doubt yourself." "It's true. I was so grateful to have someone willing to care for a child with special needs that I didn't question his motivations. True love doesn't see special needs. It only sees a child who needs love and support to grow." Margaret's perspective on true love contrasted sharply with Nathan's possessive and limiting approach. Victoria realized she had mistaken control for care, a confusion that had almost cost Emily's future. Emily, now 8 years old, was preparing to participate in a swimming competition for children with disabilities. Her determination to compete was another manifestation of her new attitude of facing challenges instead of avoiding them. "Mum, even if I don't win, I want to try," she said in signs. "Trying is more important than winning." Emily's life philosophy had matured impressively. She had internalized the lesson that effort and trying were more valuable than perfect results. On the day of the competition, Victoria, Margaret, and Mr. Walter were in the stands cheering for Emily. She had trained intensely for months and was nervous but confident. Emily didn't win the race, but finished in 3rd place among 20 participants. More importantly, she completed the race with determination and joy, greeting all the other competitors with genuine enthusiasm. "How do you feel?" asked Victoria, when Emily got out of the pool. "Proud," Emily replied simply. "Proud for trying, proud for finishing, proud for making new friends." Emily's ability to find joy and pride in the effort rather than just the result was a lesson Victoria was also learning. Success wasn't about perfection, but about growth and trying. That evening, the improvised family, Victoria, Emily, Margaret, and Mr. Walter, celebrated with a special dinner in the garden. Emily's 3rd place medal was proudly displayed on the table. "Mr. Walter, you saved our family that day in the garden," said Victoria. "If you hadn't spoken, Mrs. Henderson, I only said what I saw. You were the one who had the courage to act. But you risked your job to defend a child. That's heroism." Mr. Walter blushed and changed the subject, as he always did when receiving praise. But Emily didn't let it pass. "Grandpa Walter," she signed, using the affectionate nickname she had created for him. "You're my hero too." Mr. Walter's emotion was visible. At 64, he had found a family that valued him not just as an employee but as a person. Emily had given him the title of grandfather he had never had biologically. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. 3 years after the initial episode in the garden, Victoria received an unexpected call. It was a journalist interested in telling Emily's story for a magazine about overcoming adversity. "Mrs. Henderson, we learned about your daughter's story through the hospital where she receives follow-up care. We would like to share her journey to inspire other families." Victoria hesitated initially. Emily's privacy was important, but she also recognized that her story could help other children who were being unnecessarily limited. "I need to talk to Emily. If she agrees, we'd be happy to participate." Emily was excited about the idea of appearing in a magazine. "Can I help other kids believe they can try more things?" she asked. "That's exactly what your story would do." "Then I want to participate, but I want Grandpa Walter to be in the picture too. He's part of our story." The article was published 2 months later, with a beautiful photo of Emily swimming, surrounded by text that told her journey from limitation to liberation. Mr. Walter appeared in a smaller photo, identified as the courageous gardener who spoke the truth. The response to the article was overwhelming. Victoria received dozens of letters and emails from parents reporting similar situations where well-meaning authority figures were inadvertently limiting their children's potential. One letter in particular caught her attention. "Dear Victoria, my daughter has Down syndrome, and my husband always said we should have realistic expectations about her development. After reading about Emily, I realized our expectations were too low. We started more intensive physical therapy last week, and she's already showing progress. Thank you for sharing your story. Gratefully, Patricia." Reading these letters, Victoria realized their experience had a greater meaning. Emily hadn't just regained her mobility, she had become a symbol of hope for other families. "Emily, would you like to answer some of these letters?" asked Victoria. "Can I write to the kids? I want to tell them that trying is always good, even when it's hard." Emily began corresponding with several children facing similar physical challenges. Her ability to inspire and encourage others became a passion, and she began expressing interest in becoming a physical therapist when she grew up. "I want to help kids discover what they can do," she explained. "Like Dr. Jennifer helped me." Emily's career choice was directly connected to her own recovery journey. She had found her purpose through overcoming her own challenges. Mr. Walter, inspired by Emily's example, also began corresponding with other gardeners working in homes with special needs children. He shared tips on creating garden environments that stimulate physical activity and provide rich sensory experiences. "Mrs. Henderson, I never thought my experience with plants could help children heal," he said one afternoon. "You've always helped Emily heal, Walter. Now you're just expanding that to other children." Victoria's garden became a model for other landscapers interested in creating therapeutic spaces. Mr. Walter conducted monthly tours for professionals who wanted to learn about adaptive gardening. Margaret also found a new passion inspired by Emily's journey. She began taking evening sign language classes and eventually became a certified interpreter, working part-time in schools for deaf children. "Emily taught me it's never too late to learn something new," explained Margaret. "At 52, I've discovered a new career." Emily's transformation had created ripples of positive change that spread far beyond her immediate family. Each person touched by her story found ways to use the experience to help others. Victoria, in turn, began giving lectures at medical conferences about the importance of considering psychological and environmental factors in children's rehabilitation. Her perspective as a mother added a valuable emotional dimension to the technical discussions. "What I learned is that our job as parents isn't to protect our children from challenges, but to equip them with confidence to face those challenges," she said during a memorable lecture. Victoria's perspective shift on parenting was radical. She had moved from trying to protect Emily from disappointments to preparing her to persevere through difficulties. 4 years after the initial confrontation in the garden, Emily was thriving in all areas of her life. She had become a natural leader at her school, organizing events and helping younger children adapt. Her hearing impairment was no longer seen as a limitation, but as a characteristic that made her unique and valuable. She communicated fluently in 2 languages, spoken English through lip reading and sign language, and often served as a bridge between deaf and hearing children. Her mobility had stabilized at a level that allowed near-complete independence. She walked long distances without assistance and participated in physical activities with minimal adaptations. Most importantly, she had developed a resilient attitude that allowed her to face new challenges with enthusiasm instead of fear. "Mommy, do you think you would have discovered I could walk if Grandpa Walter hadn't spoken up?" Emily asked during a nighttime conversation. Victoria thought carefully before answering. "Honestly, I don't know. I was so influenced by Nathan's opinions that I might not have questioned the situation on my own. So Grandpa Walter really saved me. He saved us all, my love. Saved me from making a terrible marriage decision, and saved you from a life of unnecessary limitations. And saved himself too. He always says that taking care of me gave new purpose to his life." Emily's observation about Mr. Walter was insightful. The gardener had found a renewed sense of purpose through the role he played in her recovery. He often commented that his best years had been those when he helped Emily discover her capabilities. 5 years after the initial episode, Victoria's life was unrecognizable but perfectly aligned with her deepest values. She had chosen family and authenticity over convenience and appearances, a decision that had proven transformative. "Margaret, do you regret anything from the last few years?" Victoria asked during a family breakfast. "I regret not speaking about my suspicions about Mr. Nathan sooner, but I didn't know if it was my place. We all did the best we could with the information we had at the time." Mr. Walter, overhearing the conversation, added, "The important thing is that we spoke when it was necessary, and that Emily had the chance to show who she really is. The philosophy of forgiveness and growth had become central to the family. They had learned to focus on what was gained rather than what was lost, an attitude that Emily had adopted instinctively. Emily, now 11 years old, had become a confident and ambitious young girl who saw possibilities instead of limitations in every situation. Her journey of physical recovery had transformed into a journey of personal development that continued to evolve. "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to have a clinic where special children can discover their capabilities," Emily announced during dinner. "What kind of clinic?" "One that combines physical therapy, swimming, dance, and a therapeutic garden, and I want Grandpa Walter to be in charge of the garden part." Emily's dream of creating a holistic rehabilitation center was a natural extension of her own experience. She had benefited from an integrated approach that combined medical care with emotional support and varied sensory stimuli. Mr. Walter was moved by his inclusion in her future plans. "Young lady, you make me so proud. Imagine a clinic where children can heal surrounded by plants and nature, and with people who believe in them," added Emily. "That is the most important thing." Emily's understanding of the importance of believing in children's potential had been born directly from her experience with Nathan. She had internalized how a positive emotional environment was fundamental for recovery and growth. Victoria observed these conversations with a heart full of pride and gratitude. The girl who 5 years ago was limited to a wheelchair not just physically but emotionally had transformed into a visionary young woman with ambitious plans to help others. "Emily, you know that Mommy will support any dream you have," said Victoria. "I know. And I know that Grandpa Walter and Auntie Margaret will too. It's good to have a family that believes in you." Emily's observation about family was profound. She had learned that true family wasn't necessarily defined by blood or marriage, but by unconditional love and mutual support. Mr. Walter and Margaret had become family through their actions and dedication. That night, after Emily went to sleep, the 3 adults sat in the garden to reflect on the extraordinary journey they had shared. "Do you realize that Emily has become the teacher for all of us?" observed Victoria. "How so?" asked Margaret. She taught us that limitations are often imposed from the outside, not from within. That courage is trying even when you're not sure of the outcome. That true family is about supporting each person's growth. Mr. Walter agreed, and that it's never too late to stand up for what's right, even when you're afraid of the consequences. Margaret added, and that true love wants to see the person fly, not keep them caged. The lessons Emily had taught unconsciously through her journey had transformed everyone around her. Her physical recovery had been just the beginning of an emotional and spiritual recovery that encompassed the entire family. 6 years after the initial confrontation in the garden, Victoria received a call that took her by surprise. It was from a television producer interested in making a documentary about Emily's story. "Mrs. Henderson, we believe your daughter's story could inspire thousands of families. We would like to follow Emily for a few months to show how she lives now." Victoria discussed the proposal with Emily, who was excited but also thoughtful. "Mummy, if this helps other children believe in themselves, I want to do it. But I want Grandpa Walter and Auntie Margaret to be in it too. Our story is the whole family's." "And what would you like to show in the documentary?" "I want to show that I'm normal. I swim, dance, study, have dreams. I just do some things differently because I can't hear. But that doesn't stop me from anything." Emily's attitude about her disability had evolved into a healthy acceptance that allowed her to focus on abilities rather than limitations. She had learned to see her differences as distinctive characteristics rather than disabilities. The documentary was filmed over 6 months and followed Emily in her daily activities: school, swimming, dance, time in the garden with Mr. Walter, and her interactions with other children. The result was an inspiring portrait of a young woman who had transcended physical and social limitations. "What impresses me most about Emily," commented the documentary's director, "is how she combines determination with compassion. She fights for her own goals but always includes others in the journey." The observation perfectly captured the personality Emily had developed. Her experience of overcoming hadn't created arrogance or individualism, but empathy and a desire to help others. The documentary premiered at a film festival and received awards for its sensitive and inspiring approach. Most important for Victoria was seeing Emily watch the film with genuine pride in her journey. "How does it feel seeing your story on the big screen?" asked Victoria. "Proud, but mostly happy that other kids will see they can try things even when others say they can't." Emily's ability to focus on the impact her story would have on others rather than on the attention she would receive demonstrated an impressive emotional maturity for a 12-year-old. The following years brought stability and continuous growth. Emily thrived academically, socially, and physically. She had become a confident teenager with a clear vision of her future and a strong circle of support. Grandpa Walter, now 70, continued working in the garden, but had reduced his responsibilities to focus on what he loved most: creating therapeutic spaces and mentoring Emily in her growing interest in gardening as a healing tool. Margaret had become a respected interpreter and often worked at events where Emily spoke about her experience. The dynamic between them had evolved from employer and employee to partners in a shared mission. Victoria had found balance between her business responsibilities and her passion for advocating for children with special needs. She served on the boards of several organizations and used her influence to promote more holistic approaches to rehabilitation. "Do you realize how our lives have completely changed, but in an organic way?" observed Victoria during a family dinner. "What do you mean?" asked Emily. "None of us planned to become activists or therapeutic garden experts or an interpreter, but the journey took us where we needed to be." Emily smiled. "Maybe that's how life works. You follow your heart and discover your purpose along the way." The life philosophy Emily had developed was remarkably sophisticated for her age. Her experiences of overcoming had taught her lessons about purpose and authenticity that many adults never learn. 7 years after the initial episode, the family received an unexpected visit. Dr. Richardson brought a young doctor who was specializing in pediatric rehabilitation and wanted to meet Emily personally. "Emily has become a case study in our medical residency," explained Dr. Richardson. "Her recovery challenges many assumptions about permanent limitations in children." The young doctor, Dr. Amanda, was particularly interested in the role psychological factors had played in Emily's recovery. "Emily, in your opinion, what was most important for your recovery?" asked Dr. Amanda. Emily thought carefully before answering, "People who believed I could do more than I showed, and permission to try without fear of disappointing anyone." "Permission to try without fear of disappointing," repeated Dr. Amanda. "That's profound. Do you think many children are limited by the fear of disappointing adults?" "I think so. I stopped trying things because I didn't want Uncle Nathan to worry about me. Later I found out he didn't want me to try for bad reasons." Emily's ability to articulate complex psychological insights impressed the young doctor. Her personal experience had given her an intuitive understanding of power dynamics and motivation in care relationships. "Emily, do you have advice for doctors working with children like you?" "Ask the children what they want to try, and believe the answers. Sometimes adults decide what's best without asking what the child wants." Emily's advice encapsulated one of the most important lessons of her journey, the importance of including children in decisions about their own lives and treatments. Dr. Amanda left the visit with a new perspective on pediatric medicine. "Emily changed my approach even before I finished my residency," she commented to Dr. Richardson. "It's her power. She teaches by example that human potential is often underestimated." 8 years after the initial confrontation, Emily had become a 15-year-old young woman who perfectly balanced personal ambitions with social responsibility. She had chosen to focus her studies on biology and psychology, preparing to realize her dream of becoming a physical therapist. "Mom, I want to do something special for Grandpa Walter's 80th birthday," announced Emily during breakfast. "What do you have in mind?" "I want to organize a party in the garden where all the children he helped can come to thank him. And I want to make a book with photos of all the therapeutic gardens that were created based on ours." Emily's idea to honor Mr. Walter reflected her genuine gratitude and emotional maturity. She had learned to value people who make quiet differences in the lives of others. The party was an extraordinary success. More than 50 children and their families came to celebrate Mr. Walter and see the original garden that had inspired many others. The book Emily compiled documented the impact one courageous gardener had had on dozens of lives. "Mr. Walter, do you realize how many lives you've touched?" asked Victoria during the party. "I just did what was right, Mrs. Henderson. Any decent person would have done the same." "No, Walter. Not every person would have risked their job to defend a child. You chose courage when it would have been easier to choose silence." Emily approached and added, "Grandpa Walter, you didn't just teach me to walk. You taught me that it's always worth fighting for what's right." Mr. Walter's emotion was palpable. At 80 years old, he was surrounded by a loving family and tangible evidence that his life had had profound meaning. "Emily, my girl, you have given me more than I ever gave you. You taught me that it's never too late to find a new family." The party ended with Emily and Mr. Walter planting a new tree in the garden, a young oak tree that they dedicated to all the children who will yet discover they can do more than they imagine. That night, after all the guests had left, Victoria, Emily, Margaret, and Mr. Walter sat in the garden under the stars, reflecting on the extraordinary journey they had shared. "Can you believe it all started with a difficult conversation in this very garden 8 years ago?" asked Victoria. "What amazes me," said Emily, "is how a lie almost destroyed our family, but the truth made us stronger than we were before." Margaret observed, "It's because you chose to face the truth instead of running from it. That made all the difference." Mr. Walter, always the wisest of the group, added, "The truth may hurt at first, but it's the only thing that truly sets us free." End of story. So, what did you think of this story of overcoming and courage? Did the gardener Walter make the right decision by revealing the truth to Victoria? How would you act if you were in his place? Leave your opinion in the comments with sincere words. Do you believe Emily would have discovered her potential without the gardener's courageous intervention? We would love to read your perspective. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories.